Eminem admitted, "I'd be lying if I said I didn't think I was a role model to kids." He said that, quote, "Kids look at me like I'm a god." The South Warren Street Kids said that Eminem is our Christ and we party in his name. According to Spin magazine, Slim Shady is a spirit that Eminem made contact with. Apparently, Slim Shady is a spirit that Eminem channels. Eminem says of some of his fans, quote, "They're into hurting themselves. They're cult people, devil worshippers, who say I'm right next to Satan in their thoughts."
Eminem neither.
Crazy, man.
Proof. I won't even go by my fucking government name, Marshall Mathers. I'm gonna have that shit changed.
No more Marshall Mathers. What the fuck is you talking about right now, man?
If I do come back, you know what my new name will be?
So, what's your new name gonna be, man?
Rain Man. Rain Man.
This right here we call the magic moment. Right now I'm thinking like, you know, where is this going? What does this track say? You know, I look at music like a puzzle, like I try to figure it out. You know, figure out what I'm gonna say on it, figure out the emotion in the track, what it's saying. Then I go through my Rain Man. Then I go through my Rain Man.
Such as you see today in the rock music world, you see the entertainers, they have these crosses. Ladies got earrings, crosses. The guys got cross. This is a form of blasphemy, a form of deriding Christ. You see, spirits cause the people to do that, to find pleasure in wearing this type of emblem, which is the cross is the emblem of the crucifixion of Christ.
The Beatles came around, everybody freaked. They just loved the look, they loved the music. It really revolutionized the way people dressed. It revolutionized the way people wore their hair. It started, I think, a revolution in America.
It is hard to overestimate the impact that the Beatles had on the world at large, as youth by the millions were given a form of emotional shock treatment. It was through the influence of the Beatles that millions of youth around the world were almost overnight turned away from Christ to the gurus of the East. Gurus like the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi were given a platform to pass out mantras like candy to the youth. Hippie youth began repeating these mantras, believing that they were in some way scientific, when in fact they were calling out on the names of Hindu gods and demons. Yoga is actually a word that means to yoke and speaks of yoking with pagan gods. God's word warns that these false gods are actually demonic beings, and Jesus Christ warned against the repetitious praying of the pagans.
Well, before the Beatles came around, I don't think Indian spirituality and things like that were an everyday part of Western culture. It was entirely the hippies, you know, thanks to the Beatles, who decided to, you know, go to India and, you know, discover yoga and meditation. Now we all have yoga on every corner. You know, there was never anything like that before they came along.
They really wanted a spiritual revolution, a transformation.
It was time for a generation to assert themselves. And this is the revolution that the Beatles caused.
This revolution was challenged after John Lennon claimed to be more popular than Jesus Christ. This was a wake-up call to many young people around the world as they took to the streets and publicly destroyed their Beatle albums.
Don't you forget what the Beatles have said. Don't forget to take your Beatle records and your Beatle paraphernalia to any one of our 14 pickup points.
Sadly, this wake-up call did not last very long, as society at large fell back asleep and the Beatles would launch their next assault with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. John Lennon couldn't have made it any clearer when speaking of the Beatles' success and stating, quote, "I sold my soul to the devil."
Here's this guy that I knew from school and that everybody thought was weird. It's up on the truck entertaining everybody.
Elvis Presley, like no other artist before or after, had an uncanny effect on millions of his fans. He said he had no control over the way his body responded to music, and described the transformation that took place with him on stage as though he were being possessed by some, quote, surge of electricity. Steve Dunleavy, author of Elvis What Happened, stated Elvis Presley was straddling the microphone in the most suggestive of manners, his groin gyrating inches from the upright stand, and he was shaking in convulsive movements as if possessed by an alien spirit. When he sang loudly, he commanded his worshippers. Later in life, Elvis would acknowledge that the strange powers that he'd wielded over his audiences were occultic powers that he'd received from the spirit world. Elvis, as a child, believed that he was being guided by the voice of his brother Jesse, who had died at birth, but later admitted that he was being used by a hierarchy of spirit beings. His close friend Larry Geller wrote that Elvis believed that he was working under the aegis of these masters, that they had helped him. Elvis admitted, "I always felt an unseen hand behind me." Elvis Presley was actually a disciple of the teachings of the Satanist Madame Blavatsky. It was Blavatsky's teachings of the Aryan race that influenced Adolf Hitler and the SS. It was in Blavatsky's publications that the swastika first appeared in published material in Nazi Germany. Adolf Hitler was said to have kept a copy of her spirit-channeled book, The Secret Doctrine, at his bedside. Satanist Aleister Crowley boasted that he and Blavatsky were one. Blavatsky stated in The Secret Doctrine that, quote, Satan is the angel who was proud enough to believe himself God, brave enough to buy his independence at the price of eternal suffering and torture. She declared Satan, the serpent of Genesis, is the real creator and benefactor, the father of spiritual mankind. And he who was the first to whisper, in the day you eat thereof you shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil, can only be regarded in the light of a Savior. Jesus Christ warned, for whoever wishes to save his life shall lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it.
But as long as a man has the strength to dream, he can redeem his soul and fly.
Blavatsky, Crowley, and Anton LaVey, former leader of the Church of Satan, teach the same lie. In the Satanic Bible, LaVey states, say unto thine own heart, I am my own Redeemer.
Well, I'm evil.